3 words: forge, anti-fragile, and confidence. Anti-fragility is the opposite of being fragile. There's fragile, which is, life hits me, I break. There's resilient, which is, I can handle more pressure, then I kind of break down a little bit, then I bounce back faster. But what's the opposite of fragility? It's anti-fragility. That person goes and does a Spartan race and says, bring it on. Every single obstacle I face literally makes me strong. Now, to have that sense of anti-fragility, you need confidence. Confidence etymologically means intense trust. Intense trust in what? That everything's going to go great? No. That things won't go perfectly, but you have what it takes.
Welcome to the Hard Way Podcast with Joe De Sena, founder and CEO of Spartan Races. We're teaching you how to overcome your obstacles in your life the same way we teach our 10 million plus Spartans to overcome obstacles on the course. With insight from the smartest, most accomplished experts from every corner of the world. Get ready to elevate your life today.
Meet your summer sidekick, new Fit Aid Hawaiian Nectar. Classic Fit Aid in a new limited edition flavor for summer. Want 20% off plus free shipping? Visit lifeaidbevco.com and enter code SPARTAN20 at checkout to get 20% off Fit Aid. Always naturally sweetened, will never contain any aspartame or sucralose.
Joe De Sena, CEO, founder of Spartan and the Hard Way Podcast. I got one of my great buddies on today. If you don't know him, you've been living under a rock. Brian Johnson. Brian, do I call you the professor? Like, how do I refer to you?
As your brother, dude. Let's go. No, that's a good question. The identity that I commit to in the Heroic app every day is Heroic Philosopher CEO. I've got Epictetus behind me, my favorite philosopher teacher. I got Aurelius next to him, and those are my 2 formative heroes, and trying to integrate the best of both of them. Showing up with hopefully some wisdom and discipline, and as we try to catalyze a movement here with Heroic.
The modern philosophy professor. How's that?
I don't know. It's like I feel like I'm in an ivory tower with that. I'm personally the Heroic Philosopher CEO. How do I embody the best of a philosopher and the best of a modern day leader? Is what I feel called to do. But you can call it whatever you want, Joe.
Hey, if you're out there, you're listening to this, you're watching this. When I find myself up against the wall and I need some advice and a little inspiration, this is my guy. This is my go-to guy. He's hard to find, but I have a direct line, kind of like a bat phone. And I get to him, and he gives me some great advice. He just wrote this book. It weighs about 843 pounds.
Kettlebell.
And he sent me 3.
It's your run, dude. I'll send you a bag. You carry dogs, dude? Oh, yeah.
He sent me, I had 300 of these books, and the UPS driver was furious because of how heavy it was. But it's awesome. I've been giving them out to all of our super people within the Spartan community. They love it. Everybody speaks highly of the book. Why'd you write this book? You were already pretty busy. Why'd you write the book?
Yeah, I've been writing it for the better part of the last 25 years. So it's a distillation of everything I've studied over the last, better part of the last 20 years. Ancient wisdom, modern science. And we've got our Heroic app. We do a lot of things online with the coach program and whatnot. But there's something about a book that's just, you get it. You can open it up, and this book you can open up to any page and hopefully get inspired. So wrote the book as another way to help people, become their best, most heroic selves, and to help catalyze our movement. I think it's a really concrete, tangible way to make what we do more approachable and accessible. And then just had a lot of fun. I was going to write a 200 to 300 page fluffy, non-pejoratively, but fluffy book. I was 70% done with it. I'm like, this isn't my book. I got to go all in. I got to overload this thing. So it's 451 of the absolute best ideas I've studied. 451, of course, is the activation energy point at which fire is ignited. It's unapologetically dense, and there's a gravitas to it, but hopefully super readable. But that's the basic idea, and I'm really excited about it. I'm proud of it. The community's been super supportive, and I've been a bit of a hermit over the last whatever years, and I think of you, in the chat we had about how are your cleats, go put them on. Let's go get them muddy. Let's be out there in the arena, do what we need to do. And it feels like kind of a formative moment for me personally too, to really get out there. And the book is a really powerful, I think, conduit for that.
This is kind of like, I guess, if Steve Jobs and, I don't know, Seneca came together and created a book, because it It's very slick. I like the book, and it is easy to read. You just, wherever you open it up, you get excited. But that's enough about the book. I don't want to push the book too much. I want to talk about the concepts in the book and the stuff you've been studying for 25 years. So how do we become a little more disciplined? How do we become a little tougher? How do we become a little more the person we all want to be? How do we do it? I mean, you've been studying this for 25 years.
So then this is what I'm so excited about, and why I'm wearing a t-shirt that says Arte. I tattooed my body with Arte. The book, of course, is called Arte. Arte is the one-word answer. The ancient Stoics, the ancient Greek philosophers, Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus. It's the one-word answer those guys would give you on how to live a good life. So the answer to the question is live with Arte. We translate the word as virtue or excellence, but it means something closer to being your best self, moment to moment to moment. And I like to frame it up where if you're capable of being this in any given moment, and you're actually being that, and there's a gap, it's in that gap in which regret, anxiety, disillusionment, depression exists. It's more nuanced, but it's also that simple. Close the gap, live with Arte, and you feel great. And that was the summum bonum of ancient Greek and Stoic philosophy. To close the gap by living with Arte, then you experience eudaimonia, which was the summum bonum, the greatest good of all their perspectives. And again, that's it. Like, that's how you do it. And then they go, well, how do you do that? And then that's, of course, what my life's work is about, is trying to integrate all that into practical tools.
Live with Arte. So I had to give a speech to a bunch of supporters and folks that are involved with Norwich University, the oldest private military university in the U.S. And I was giving the speech, and I said, stick to your knitting. Whatever Norwich was built on way back when, just stick to it, because otherwise every year that goes by, if you're an institution, you're a person, your family, your business, you make these little compromises. I think this is what you're saying. You make these little compromises, then you wake up one day and there's a gap. You're not living the way you set out to live. You're not running the business that you set out to build. Is that what you're saying?
I am, but the fun thing here and the powerful thing is that there's a gap between who you think you could have been and perhaps maybe, quote, should have been between the last, 25 years and now. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, and then there's the gap between who you think you should be and where you are and all that. I'm talking about this moment. So this is like the heroic Eckhart Tolle power of now. Like, what does that mean? Power of now. All right, I want to be, no. Get your energy focused on what's important now. Get clear on what you want in your life. We call it targeted thinking. And then ask yourself, what do I need to do right now to be in integrity with that? And you're absolutely spot on. These institutions created, a couple hundred years ago, they were grounded in virtue, especially the military institutions. This is goosebumps. That's it. They know how to play the ultimate game in service to something bigger than themselves. But the exciting thing is that the moment you live with Arte, in my mind, and you close the gap, you are heroic. You don't need to wait until you make this list or this much money or whatever. It's in the moment-to-moment decisions. And that's good news, but it's also bad news, because you're never going to get there. There's no there. Every single day and every single moment of every single day, you're either stepping forward into growth and being your best self or not. And you're going to feel it one way or another. And the days when you don't do it and you let a gap creep in are the days you want to numb yourself. Whereas, and you're the embodiment of this, man. And it's why I admire you so much and get so much inspiration from you, is you find ways to push yourself to close that gap as a sport. Like, I get immune to the challenges. Like, what else am I going to do with my life but be my best,
Yeah, I do push myself every single day to get to that point of being uncomfortable. And because if I don't, and I assume everybody's like this, but maybe they're not, Brian, if I don't do that, I feel like I didn't squeeze all the lemon out of the juice, that like I just didn't give it I don't know. I feels like I left something on the table, and I don't want to leave something on the table.
I do goosebumps. And again, this is why you are Joe De Sena and why you are an inspiration for me. And that's it. There's a palpable urgency, that this isn't a dress rehearsal. It's the activation energy point. But then you've gone way past that. 451 to start a fire, 2,200 degrees if you want to forge a sword. So we've got to turn up the heat. And it's become cool to be a bit critical, cynical, nihilistic, and this level of intensity. Well, that guy's just whatever. What are you doing here? And your embodiment of that is it. When I first worked with my coach, Phil Stutz, I interviewed him actually before I hired him. He's laughed. He's like, dude, my clients get more done before you get up in the morning than you're going to get done all week. He's like a level of speed as a force is one of his mantras. You can make an impact right now. This is the moment. This is the moment. And he jokes. He's like, people work hard for a day or two or a week or two or whatever, and they make some big thing and they want to take a vacation. Let me go pack my bags and go sip the pizza. It's like, what are you doing here? Show up. So as athletes that are given everything they've got on every single play, that there's always that one or two guy on the court that's hustling up and down the court every single play. And to me, I don't know how any other way to play, and that's what I see in you. But unfortunately, that isn't what we've been conditioned to think is the noble life. We've been seduced for 2,500 years to play the easy game, to create a good mood rather than a good life. So bless you for getting us out there and getting muddy, and then it's more good one.
I've had a continual dream where I'm just not moving fast enough. I'm not getting enough done. This younger generation, this new generation, and that sentence that I just gave, the younger generation, this has been going on since the 1700s, right? Every generation talks about the new generation, but it does feel like this new generation with the phones and the Uber Eats, and I don't know.
Well, dude, I mean, this is one of the things that it's a 2,500-year-old challenge. So Socrates and the Stoics talked about the choice of Hercules, where he was seduced by the goddess that told him that her name was happiness, but it was really vice. This is like a classic story. It's the Bhagavad Gita. It's every single wisdom tradition. But today, that inherent human challenge, the voice of our daimon, the best within us, and the demon, which, by the way, is the diminutive of the daimon, the guiding spirit, is the demon. It's that little voice in you that just wants it easy and fast. These days, it's amplified at, I'm not easily frightened, but horrific levels. And then you look at the psychological, the self-harm, the suicide ideation, and actual suicide rate among the next generation who have been constantly exposed to this stimuli, seduced to play the absolute wrong game, have absolutely no tolerance for silence or effort and these sorts of things. And you start to see the unraveling of, in many ways, the human character, and that's a no joke, real deal issue that we got to make this conversation, engaging, sexy, appealing. The ultimate game needs to be as seductive, if you will, and appealing as the one that so many of us have been seduced to play.
Yeah, it is. Like I look at any of my kids, and I'm a hard ass in the house. I look at the kids, and they're looking at their phones nonstop, and I could take the phones away. And then I was wrestling with my son last night. I got the phone. He's tackling me. We're fighting over.
I'm still looking at websites in Mandarin. You force them. They've only got one language on the phone, which is Mandarin. So at least they're done in Mandarin, right?
But it's still on the phone, even though it's in Mandarin. And I push them hard, but I can't even imagine a household that doesn't push the kids hard. So your game is to get the message out there, write the books, have the Heroic app, and hope that folks get inspired to live that way. Because I don't know, Brian. I mean, I sell tough tickets every day, and it's hard. And if I was selling lollipops and you were selling, cartoons, it'd be a hell of a lot easier.
Well, no question. This is again what the goddess, the alternative goddess to the one that tried to seduce Hercules. She was stern and all this, and so it was going to be hard. Her name was Arte, the one that he chose to follow. And for his effort and willingness to face those challenges, he'd live a life worthy of the admiration of the gods and of himself. But strategically, what I'm trying to do is I train heroes is what I do. So Walt Whitman said, in the faces of men and women, I see God. I say in the faces of men and women, I see heroes. And we're facing historically significant challenges from my vantage point. 500 years from now, we're going to look back at this exact moment in history, and it's significant. And everyone's looking out, not everyone, but we're looking outside of ourselves for the one that's going to save us. And my admonition is, no, you're the one we've been waiting for, step up. But as you know, we train the heroes, but then the heroes become the guides. So we train coaches. We want to train them on the methodology. But my big thing is be a radiant exemplar. Be the version of yourself you aspire to be, that when you walk into a room, you have a felt sense of what the ancient Chinese philosophers called moral charisma, that we know neuroscientifically people want to follow. You're in a room and people feel your presence. And again, you're not that guy, but you're that guy. You've got this calm, confident, humble presence that I want more of that. And so my whole thing is, let's go get 1 million of those people who are fully lit, living a life of integrity. And the ripples that come out of that, I think are significant. Now, there's still a lot more to go before we're able to hit some of the goals that I tattooed on my arm to make sure I don't forget them. But that's how it's done in my mind. You got to train the heroes. The heroes become the guides. They train the heroes, repeat. And from my vantage point, that's the only way we're going to have a shot.
Special summer edition of FitAid, Classic FitAid, new flavor. FitAid Hawaiian Nectar is a summer vacation for your taste buds. Take a one-way ticket to Recovery Town with this limited edition flavor. Visit lifeaidbevco.com and enter code Spartan20 at checkout to get 20% off FitAid Hawaiian Nectar plus free shipping. Certified non-GMO tested, vegan, paleo-friendly, certified gluten-free, kosher, and never contains any artificial flavors or sweeteners. The FitAid Recovery Blend has glutamine, glucosamine, turmeric, BCAAs, omega-3s, CoQ10, full B complex and electrolytes. Perfect for after the race, gym, hiking or biking. FitAid is a product of LifeAid, the performance beverage company. FitAid is an official partner of the Spartan Race Series.
And they're anti-fragile. Talk to me about anti-fragile. It comes up in the book quite a bit.
Yeah, so it's the second objective. You got to know the ultimate game. We talked about that. The second objective is forge anti-fragile confidence. 3 words: forge, anti-fragile, and confidence. Forge, we talked about. 451, you ignite fire. You better get it up to 2200. Show up with intensity. Stay grounded, obviously, but be intense. Anti-fragility is the opposite of being fragile. Nassim Taleb coined the word. There's fragile, which is, life hits me, I break. There's resilient, which is, I can handle more pressure. Then I kind of break down a little bit, then I bounce back faster. But what's the opposite of fragility? It's anti-fragility. That person does a Spartan race and says, bring it on. Every single obstacle I face literally makes me stronger. Now, to have that sense of anti-fragility, you need confidence. Confidence etymologically means intense trust. Intense trust in what? That everything's going to go great? No, that things won't go perfectly, but you have what it takes. And then I like to say, look, if you want to build trust in any relationship, you've got to do what you say you will do. And if someone doesn't do what they say they will do, you wouldn't trust them, and you shouldn't trust them. So if you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, you shouldn't trust yourself. You shouldn't have the confidence that you say you want to have. Stated positively, when you actually start doing the things you say you will do, whether it's nutrition or movement or meditation or being with your kids without your phone or whatever, you build trust. And then again, my coach, Phil Stutz, who's in the documentary. Have you seen the documentary yet, Stutz?
I've not seen it yet, no.
Oh, you need to watch it. He's a New Yorker, dude. F-bomb here and there. Jonah Hill. He really does a great job of democratizing these ideas and challenges all the therapeutic models that just get you talking about things and not doing things. So it's brilliant. But he's my spiritual father. We've worked together 400 one-on-one sessions over the last 7 years. In one of the early ones, he complimented me on my emotional stamina. I'm like, oh, that's nice. Thanks. I have no idea what that is, but thank you. Next session, what's emotional stamina and how do I get more of it? He's like, oh, you can endure, a lot of pressure and stress and you're able to, really handle that. And then he said, and the way you build emotional stamina, which I now call anti-fragile confidence, is the worse you feel, the more you're getting knocked around, the more committed you are to your protocol. You need to be committed to your protocol. It's what you did when COVID hit. So when COVID hit, what did you do? You tripled the down on the things that you knew you needed to do. When everybody else is falling apart, you're like, perfect. I guess I'm working out 3 times a day for the next year or whatever, X months. Now, when you do that, when you get hit by life and instead of breaking and doing all the circus, in town things that one does when they're not thinking very well, And instead, you use that same challenge to get stronger by doing the little things at a higher degree of excellence. You completely change your life. You forge anti-fragile confidence. Even 3, 5, 10% improvement on this is life-changing. It's the thing I'm most proud of in my work, and that I come back to, that I think has had the biggest impact in my life, and in the people we've been blessed to work with.
I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, if you and I were living in the 1500s or go way back 2,500 years, or just really tough places, let's say we're on the front lines, we're in foxholes, is this conversation like even had? Does it need to be had? Like, we just have to survive.
Weird. I talked to Alexander about that this morning. 10,000. Let's go 10,000 years ago, right? So we're right on the edge of humanity, civilization, dude. No, full stop. This was not a cultural conversation. You were as close to being a natural animal as you're going to imagine in terms of the human species. You were responding to life where you weren't part of the experience of being alive. You know what I mean? There was no bitching and whining and half-assing anything. It was, no, you're either showing up fully engaged in what that situation demanded. And of course, there were moments of connection and leisure, but you were still, even in those moments, so I watched my cat go from to, oh, I'm in the moment he hears the sound, I don't think so. I don't think that this, and again, of course, there's always been, the voices, but it's only with, I think, civilization, and that's now thousands of years in the making, which is why 2,500 years ago, Socrates, the Stoics, Buddha, Lao Tzu, everybody was talking about these things. But I do think that in the big picture, it's relatively new, and yet, again, it's been amplified beyond measure over the last 25 years vis-a-vis 2,500 years ago.
Yeah, it almost feels like a luxury that I guess my brain goes right back there. And, when in the early days when I was building a business as a kid, there were kids that were in my truck that I had hired for a day or 2 or 10. And many of them, I'm a little depressed. I don't know what I want to do in my life. I'm not sure. And I remember thinking to myself, who has time to be depressed? I have to make payroll. And so my brain goes to like, I don't know. I feel like even though I don't live back then, I lived 10,000 years ago. At least that's where my brain is. And I'm always under pressure. I'm always fighting for survival. And these are luxurious conversations. Is that?
Well, yes, and I'll tell you what. I mean, I was one of those guys that struggled, and we haven't talked much about it, but 25 years ago, I wanted to end my own life. So I grew up in a family with an alcoholic father, good man, worked hard, grocery store for 37 years, 5 kids. I would have started drinking too if I went through what he went through. He did better than his dad, who was an alcoholic who killed himself. So I can now look at that and say, all right, well, apparently I lost the genetic and environmental lotteries there. And I graduated from UCLA. I started my career at Arthur Andersen back in the day. In a year, they trained me in 4 service lines. I must hold the record all time. Audit, tax, financial planning, consulting. I'm like, no, they were generous enough to train me. But in the first week of work, literally, second day, I'm driving home from downtown to West LA. I'm on the 405. I rush hour. I pull over on the side of the freeway and just throw up. I'm like, oh, this is my life. This is what I'm going to do. So I think you're you, and you may have had just this drive and ability to handle life and figure it out and just grind and make it happen. I didn't. It took me years and years and years to create the scaffolding in my life, which I'm really grateful for, because now I can look at it and go, I know what it feels like to feel that. I know what it feels like to feel this, and I know I will never feel that again, and I know what I did to build the scaffolding, and some of that will definitely work for you. You'll need to figure out your own story. But that's what I've experienced. And then it's the basics, as you know, it's eating, it's moving, it's sleeping, it's breathing, it's focusing your mind, having goals that inspire you and maintaining that hope, and then just taking action. But I've definitely been humbled, and thankfully that's far in the rearview mirror now, but it never goes away, and there's a compassion that I have now. It's hard. It's harder than ever. And again, especially that next generation and, guys in our generation and women, of course, who just wearing it. 80% of us are anxious or depressed, and the society's not having these conversations and giving practical tools to solve that stuff. So then you're just on this treadmill getting nowhere. And you're kind of throwing your arms up and saying, when does it get better? What do I need to do? And that's, again, what I feel called to do. Why I admire you is Let's go. It's supposed to be hard. That's rule number one, by the way. The story that you've told yourself that it should be easy is the most toxic story. It's supposed to be hard. Heroes battle dragons. They don't sidestep wizards. So embrace your challenges, approach your challenges, and here's how, you know?
So the number one thing you would tell people that are out there that are battling with that vomit on the side of the highway, they're lost a little bit, you'd say what?
I'd start with their fundamentals. I'd start with the habits, behavioral change. Well, I'd step back and I would say, all right, cool, we get it. That's part of the human experience. Nothing's wrong with you. Because the other thing that I told myself was I was convinced I was the only human being on the planet that was suffering the way I was. And again, today, 80% of us are struggling with anxiety, depression. So rule number one of the science of self-compassion is common humanity. You're not alone. It's not because you're you, it's because you're human. And then it's BJ Fogg, the great Stanford behavioral design therapist or whatever, scientist, says it's not a character flaw, it's a design flaw. You haven't been taught how to install and delete habits. But unquestionably, I would have them build their vitality, their energy, eating, moving, sleeping. Take control of the controllables. You're not going to figure out exactly what you want to do in your life tomorrow morning. And your story that you need to is part of your problem as well. So why don't we control the controllables, channel our John Wooden, learn how to put our socks on, and start doing the things we know we could be doing. So the number one exercise I have to help people get clarity on their protocol, because again, if you want to work your protocol even more fiercely when you feel your worst, it presupposes you have a protocol. So the question is, what do you do when you're at your best, and what do you not do when you're at your best? And I just bust out a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle, put do on the upper left, put don't on the upper right, and then think back to a time in your life when you were crushing it. Energy, work, and love, whether it was a day or a week or a month or a year or a decade. We've all had highlight reel moments where we're crushing it. Well, what were you doing? And what were you not doing? And then circle the one thing you know that if you started doing it would most change your life. And then circle the one thing you know you need to stop doing and know that that is actually the fastest way to change your life. If you're binge drinking, binge watching, binge eating, or whatever else you're doing, and we've all got kryptonites, stopping that is the fastest way to get back on track. But that's practically what I would encourage them to consider doing. Slow down, control the controllables, and start taking action on the things that you know you could be doing that you're not currently doing. Close the gap, rebuild your trust in yourself, and then we'll start exploring some of the more complex questions of what you're going to do when you grow up and all the other things, right?
I love the simplicity of take a look at what's toxic in your life and just stop that.
Full stop.
Right? Cigarettes, drinking, whatever the thing is, stop that. Let's start there. I had somebody reach out yesterday, one of the Spartans, said going through a tough moment. And I said, okay, number one, tell me if you agree with this. I said, number one, you got to exercise every day. Your alternatives to that are not good. Drugs, sleeping, and bad. Like, you got to exercise every day. Number two, you got to stop drinking. And there's a place out in Seattle. I don't know if I've ever talked to you about it, but I've sent more customers to this place. It's the Schick Shadle Institute. Schick Razor, I don't know, in the early 1900s, came up with a protocol to help people get off addiction, and he rewires your brain. So if you and I were to go there and we were addicted to whatever, they put us in front of a mirror, they hook us up with electricity, they give us an epitaph, which is going to make us vomit, and they have us do the thing that we're addicted to while we're getting electrocuted and vomiting. And we're looking at ourselves in the mirror. And then they take the vomit, they rub it all over your bed that night so you're smelling it. They do it again the next day for a little longer, the next day for a little. By the time you leave this place in 8 or 9 days, you never want to see that thing again. It's a bit extreme. It's Clockwork Orange. It's Spartan death race on steroids. But I've sent people there and it works.
Oh, seeing the eyeballs, just how do you know?
It works. But you tell people, take the poison out of your life. I'll send you to Schick Shadle. 90% of them, they don't want to go. They don't want to take the poison out. I don't. Yeah. What is that?
Good question, man. And it's part of my life. My dad struggled with that. Never, ever, ever, ever broke through. Again, I wish I had an answer to that. Like just how do you, and you can't start someone else's fire. You know what I mean? Like, and you can't start a fire with wet wood. Like you got to find your own internal motivation to get to that activation point. But my life's work has been trying to find all the different entry points, so here's an idea. How can I get you, But I think for me anyway, it was a depth of despair, yet this glimmer of hope. And then I don't want to feel that way. At some level, we need to get fed up with feeling that and then do the hard work and embrace the hard work to change, whether it's Clockwork Orange style or whatever your flavor is. But again, it's that activation point. We've got some exercises. I mean, the number one exercise that I have found most powerful that I've gotten a lot of feedback on is, everyone's heard of the eulogy exercise, where you imagine yourself at your memorial service and what did people say, which is important to get clarity on the fact they're not talking about the square footage in your house and how fast you drove that awesome car. They're talking about your virtues. So the question is, are you living in integrity with those virtues and treating people and yourself the way you aspire to be remembered by? But then I like to talk about got the big guy busting in, talk about imagine your best self 5 years from now. It's a scientific exercise to boost hope. So fast forward 5 years and imagine your life dialed in your energy, your work, and your love. You've worked hard. You've gotten a little lucky. Who are you? Feel that, see that. And that's hard for people that don't spend a lot of time thinking about those things and all they do is complain, etc. But imagine that, longer chat on how to do that. Now fast forward to the end of your life, and for whatever set of reasons you didn't live in integrity with what you needed to do to be that version of you, so you're on your deathbed, and you didn't live the life you could have lived, and right before you're going to die, the door opens to your bedroom where you're on your deathbed, and in walks the version of you could have been. And that moment, some say, is hell. To see the version of you could have been right at the moment when you couldn't do anything else about it. So there you go. I mean, let's wake up to the fact that this is it. And that's what you embody, at a level that makes me think that I'm standing still. It's like, all right, cool. What's Joe? Dude, I get into my cold plunge. I'm like, sitting there, Joe wouldn't have sat here this long. I'm all pumping myself up. Let's go, wait and get the burpees blown out. But anyway, I think how do you insert that level of urgency? And I'll say it again. This is one of the things I think you do better than anyone. You are radiating and showing us what a life lived in your own idiosyncratic way, at full intensity, unapologetically looks like. And that's it. I think getting enough of us doing that, sharing in our own idiosyncratic ways, hopefully one person's listening to this who's like, oh yeah, that idea. And I've gotten feedback from our prior chats on exactly that. I found you through a chat with Joe, and Arte just resonated with me, and I knew that I wanted to do this. Again, long non-answer now to your question, but that's the ultimate question, right?
That is the ultimate question. All right, how do people find you?
Heroic, you can find in the iOS, Android app store, heroic.us, and then the book, Arte, if you're listening to this, it's spelled Arete. That's Amazon, Barnes & Noble, independent bookstores. Dude, we're in FedEx. I'm like, that's awesome, FedEx, let's go.
I love it.
Whatever, anywhere you get books, heroic.us/book. If you're not ready to buy it yet, but you want to see kind of whatever, the intro, the forward. Phil Stutz wrote the forward, the book. Joe's got a nice little blurb in there. But yeah, man, appreciate you.
I want to give away races somehow to folks that buy the book.
Dude, let's talk about that. I mean, we can
figure that out, right? If you buy the book, you've got to run the race with the book in your pack, obviously, just for the extra weight. You got to read the book before you finish the race. Otherwise, you don't get the medal.
We need to put that together. The book launches, it launches in a few days. We will literally immediately install that if you're being serious about it. Let's go.
Yeah, let's figure that out. And look, you're awesome. You're down in Austin?
Yep.
Loving it?
Dude, absolutely loving it. In the country, 30 minutes outside of town. Literally team was just out. We're launching obviously tomorrow. I got like 5 different burpee spots, I got my handprints, I got my feet dug in, and just got all these different workouts. The 3-minute 33 burpee workout where I spin around the whole half-mile loop, which is 55 burpees plus the pull-ups on the tree, dude. We love it out here.
I love it.
Oh, my Spartan bag. What are you talking about? We got some B-roll coming out with Spartan gear.
What's some little secret stories going on? This is like the behind-the-scenes section of the podcast. What do you got that you could tell us?
I filmed a documentary on coaching, which I need to introduce you to the guys too. They would love you, and I think you'd love them, called The Toolkit, on kind of the behind the scenes things you work with your elite clients, and that sort of thing. That was fun. But dude, I'm just all in on the book right now. We're working hard on that, just trying to, as you said, leave it all on the court. I've waited a long time to do it. Now's the time to unapologetically lean in and let's go. Kids are great. Other than that, dude, I'm boring. I wake up, I hammer 101 targets in the app, go to sleep and repeat.
I'm with you. All right. Well, look, I love talking to you. So we could do a podcast every week if you want. I'll see you later. Thanks for coming. You're amazing.
Fit Aid Hawaiian Nectar is a summer vacation for your taste buds. Coupled with the classic recovery vitamins and supplements of Fit Aid, it will have you sipping on a sunset after your next workout. Visit lifeaidbevco.com and enter code SPARTAN20 at checkout to get 20% off plus fast, free shipping.